I'm Raffaele Zade, born in Paris, 34 years old, and I grew up and studied in Paris, and I'm a photographer and became war photographer and going into more documentary photography. My father, who was a war photographer, gave me then his camera at 11 years old. It was an old, really old camera, a film camera, so I played with it, and then I started to maybe a relation with this camera. But beside that also is that I always watch my father coming back and see him editing his photo when he was coming from his reportage abroad. And then at that time I was really a kid. I wanted to become a reporter. And at that time also I started to work a bit with the agency of my father, who was SIPA Press. So they gave me a byline which I could sell my picture. So even my first publication was at 13 years old. My real experience as a reporter started in 2010, 2011 with the Arab Spring. I decided to go by my own in Tunisia, and there I got my first assignment with Associated Press and then with the French newspaper Libération. Now then, to be in Tunisia during that time where all the eyes of the world is highlighting the situation, it's quite interesting. I mean, but it's a big responsibility, which maybe at the beginning I didn't have, but I knew that I would need to do my best as it was my first time. And as the situation was getting a bit down in Tunisia, I decided to take a plane from Tunis to Cairo. And as the uprising was growing in Egypt, I follow like that the news. One day like that, even in the evening, we understood that Mubarak left the power. It was during the night, so I think all the night I've been photographing beautiful moments, and that was quite remarkable, to be there, and very exciting. My first war photographer mission was in Ukraine in 2014. I was in the town called Slaviansk, which was besieged towns. Like all the other photographer journalists was in the capital of the region. But me, I decided myself to not be with everyone, but to settle and to live in this besieged area. So I spent 2 weeks there, and it was where there was the front line, again, the pro-Russian and the Ukrainian army. So I spent one night, and that was kind of my baptized fires with the pro-Russian separatist forces. And during that night, so I experienced all kind of different shooting, and here was kind of the first time that I started to heard and to understand the symphony of the war, and to do the differences between AK-47, 120 millimeter mortars. But at that time I was conscious that I was in a dangerous place, but I kept my head up and confident of what I was supposed to do than taking picture. Then priority to, in those fields will be, yeah, at least to listen to yourself and to get a bit the knowledge about the situation, about what's going on, to follow the news every day, to keep the monitoring about the situation. Then after that, you can decide to go to one location of the day. So each day it's another one. So if you want to go to this location, you really need to, I mean, for me, get the balance about what I will bring. But if I can go there, but also the most important is if I can come back, because to do the picture is one thing, but to get the possibility to extract them, I mean, to send them to someone outside where you are, that's the main point. So I've been wounded, yes, in Nagorno-Karabakh in the 1st October of 2020. I was in assignment with Le Monde, and then I was with my colleague. So it was the first day of the assignment as we arrived the eves, the previous day. And then we had the opportunity to visit a place called Martumi with a press tour, so there was also other colleagues. Azerbaijan army started to shell, and then for the first second, I mean, I heard and I understood it was a Grad shelling, which is like multiple missiles shelling. And then it fell down really close by. I saw the explosion happening on my back, and a big fireballs, and then I fell down. So I've been injured beside the leg, so they needed to remove a lot of parts of that, I mean, the destroyed pieces of the leg. After that experience, I understood that, I mean, a lot of people also ask me, why didn't stop? And then I was 28 years, so I was going to my 30 years old. But at the end, if everybody is saying that, who will do that? It's really important to have people on the ground documenting. That's one point. And to get this information out and to bring them to the people. The people who are there, they cannot go out. They are completely vulnerable. So the people need a voice, people need to have someone to rely on it. And for me, even, and what is really interesting about all that, everything is extraordinary. So it's complicated sometimes to come back in the ordinary, or to come back at home where everybody is trying to struggle for daily life stuff. But there, everything is extraordinary. So everybody will have extraordinary history. And this is part of humanity who should be told and shared to each one. So in August 8, I arrived 4 days after the port explosion in Beirut. It was a quite strange day because it would face like a war landscape, but it wasn't a war. It was just like a fragment of seconds, completely destroyed. And then the people after moved and started then to head to the big square and then to demonstrate. And it was like very strong demonstration that they were having. Is that after all those demonstration experience that I had, tear gas, even like, in this picture is like, I mean, okay, then it's not bullets, so it's nothing. But at the end is that I fell down in a certain point because I couldn't stay on my legs, because it was this emotion, this moment. And so I fell down. Physically, I needed to rest a bit, but it was completely intense. So again, I put my body, I mean, I stand up and get my strength and say, okay, then I need to go back at work. So recently, I think 2 years ago, with my fathers, then we decided to do a compilation of our both works. So it's called Family Affairs. And so that's me on the front page, a photograph when I was maybe 6 years old, and then playing with the camera was my father. That was really the first, my first touch with a camera. And then on the book, there is like me when I was 13 years old with my father, with then both of us with the cameras. And then there was this picture taken when we met each other in Maidan Square, Maidan Tahrir in Cairo during the revolution. And then I was 20 years old. But these books, trace mostly my 20 years career as a photographer. This was a picture during my first trip in Ukraine in February 2024, and it was really early in the morning. It was 7 o'clock, so it was really crowded, and everything was burning. And just a couple minutes after that I took these shots, the police started to shoot to the demonstrator. Here I was just in front of this protester who's, I don't know really even, because there was, beside me there was like a huge crowd of very angry people who really wanted to fight against the riot police. And this guy just came and to try to calm down the situation. And then maybe a few minutes after that he left, all the people who were in front of him, then behind me, started to rush and to be really aggressive. And they started to pick up some of the police guy and then they started to fight with them. And then after all those guys, those police forces really run away, maybe it marks the end of this revolution. And beside that, just it was like a mass killing. I mean, they killed like 70 people, but just at the same time that this picture has been taken. And that's also in Ukraine. That was my third visit in Ukraine, in Donbass, in May 2014. I was with the pro-Russian separatist forces, which it was quite easy for us, the journalists, to work with them instead of working with the Ukrainian, because the Ukrainian army didn't allow journalists to work with them, as it was for them the first war. They didn't know what to do. We were working then and documenting the fight on the pro-Russian side, and that was one of my first war picture, where we can see this guy sitting just before that the night falls, smoking his cigarettes and having his ruffles, picking with his friends. And then a few hours after, when the nights really fall down, they started to have heavy battles, heavy combats with the Ukrainian forces. It was something that maybe I prepared myself before, but when it's coming in the present times, I was just really concentrated to have the picture as the night was getting very dark, and try to do much that I can and at least to to not be hit during the biomissiles and everything during these battles. But this war has completely changed, the warfare changed. It's practically impossible to get a picture like that in the trenches with the soldier because there is drones around the skies, and so they will not even let the journalists go so closely from the front line. And also that one, it has been done always in Donbass and in eastern Ukraine. It was in May 2015, so at least 1 year after the previous picture. And that one also, it's quite interesting because it's people crossing the border between then the separatist area was controlled by the pro-Russian and the Ukrainian side, which today, when the big full-scale invasion started in 2022, the border stopped working. And also that was one of my last visits on the other side, the pro-Russian separatist side, because in 2015, at least in May, after that, they started to be more restrictive, and they didn't let foreign journalists go and cover what was going on. And from these same years, about 2014, I went to Palestine, and then I visited also Gaza during the war in August. And that was completely different also. Everything was destroyed. But it was, my first maybe fully destroyed place, and there was no really electricity, there was not really water, and then you would really feel like a prison over there. And I took this picture around the 20th of August, and it was a time where there was a ceasefire agreement, and then after kind of hostility who started again. So I took it really quite quickly because there was the family passing with the car, and that was in Bet Hanoun, where there is the UN Refugee Displaced People Center. Maybe this picture also would have been done almost 10 years after, in 2003, when the big war started in Gaza as well. But at least also is that during that war, foreign journalists would be able to cover the situation on the ground, which completely changed as well today. I like to go every time in the same places, is that, especially in the wartime, is that one day you can see this building and the other day it disappears. And so photography kind of this remains of the heritage of the cities, of the people, and of the world heritage. So even Ukraine, I've been, for the last 3 years, I went there maybe 17 times. As the war started in Ukraine, I came back then in Ukraine, and that's also one picture quite important about the full-scale invasion. So that has been taken in March 2022. So that was also kind of the first time that the Ukrainian, with the help with foreign country, will strike the Russian forces. So even when I took this picture, it was then very cold, and there was these girls. We can see in her face that there is a kind of desolation, and we can see like a dog passing by, a guy is cycling. After 2 days I took this picture, the area was completely occupied by the Russian, and they started then to kill the civilian. And this picture also did then the cover of the newspaper which I was working for, the French newspaper Libération. And it's as well of this soldier. This picture have been done also in Ukraine in 2022. And then we were few journalists who could go the first day of this liberation. And this photograph, it's a Ukrainian soldier walking then on Russian tanks. And also this photograph, it's graphically interesting, aesthetically. There's the shadows, and then we can understand a bit what's happening. And also it's quite an important one because he died a few months later. He's not here anymore, but he's still existing on the frame, on a solid picture. The good advice for young people would be to believe on what they want and to photograph what they want. And about if even you're going to a war place, it's always interesting to focus maybe on what you like. If you like food, you can tell a story about food in a wartime. But to get this point and this link between you as a human being, them as a human being, and universal thing.